Anika refreshed her inbox. Again. Nothing. Her coffee had gone cold. She barely noticed. She had spent months sending out job applications, tweaking her resume, stripping away anything that might hint at her age. No responses. No interviews. Just silence. Her eyes flickered to the email she had been avoiding. Company restructuring update. She clicked. Read the words for the 100th time. We regret to inform you that your position has been eliminated. Her breath caught. 30 years in tech. 30 years of debugging code, leading teams, building software before the internet was even mainstream. And just like that? She was obsolete. A soft ping snapped her back. Another email. Reminder, mortgage payment due. Her stomach clenched. She reached for a second envelope, the first tuition bill for her twins, Maya and Ethan. She had spent decades building a future for them. And now? She wasn't sure if she could afford it. Her reflection in the dark screen of her laptop caught her off guard. The streaks of silver in her hair stood out under the harsh kitchen light, a timeline of her career etched in strands. Her fingers tightened around the box of drugstore black hair dye sitting on the counter. She turned it over in her hands, hesitating. This color erases 30 years of experience. But it buys me a chance to keep feeding my kids. The dye stung her scalp. The smell of ammonia clung to her skin. By the time she rinsed it out, the woman in the mirror looked younger, but she didn't recognize her anymore. Anika stared at her reflection, her freshly dyed black hair still damp. She should have felt relieved, like she had taken control, erased the years that hiring managers saw as a liability. Instead, she felt hollow. She turned away and grabbed her laptop, scrolling through yet another batch of job postings. The requirements blurred together, fast-paced, innovative, must thrive in a dynamic environment. Code 4, if you're over 40, don't bother applying. A new message popped up. Raj. Any luck? She hesitated before typing back. No one's even responding. Raj's reply was immediate. Yeah. They don't want experience. They want cheap. Her jaw tightened. He wasn't wrong. Raj had been a lead software architect, had designed systems still in use today. And now? He was driving Uber just to make ends meet. Anika wasn't ready to say it out loud, but she was starting to wonder if she'd be next. The next morning, she deleted the first 10 years of her work experience from her resume. Then she deleted the year she graduated. A cleaner, younger version of herself stared back from the screen. She swallowed hard, then hit save. It wasn't enough. Scrolling through LinkedIn profiles of women in tech, she noticed something. The few over 50 who still had jobs. Not a single one had gray hair. She had already erased her experience. Now, she had to erase the proof. She signed up for a night course in AI development. The first day, she walked into a classroom full of Gen Z coders, kids who had grown up with smartphones, who thought of email as something only old people used. She slid into the back row. Kept her head down. Within minutes, she knew she was already falling behind. The professor moved at lightning speed. The younger students weren't learning, they were refining what they already knew. A kid next to her, Dylan, maybe 22, maybe younger, glanced at her handwritten notes and smirked. Old school, he muttered under his breath. Anika felt the heat rise to her face. She gripped her pen tighter. She wasn't here to make friends. She was here to survive. That night, she spent 4 hours debugging a single AI script. She finally logged into the class forum, only to see a post from one of her classmates. Knocked this out in 30 minutes. Super simple. Her stomach sank. She clicked on their code. It was elegant. Efficient. Nothing like hers. For the first time, she wondered, what if they're right? What if I really can't keep up? Her phone buzzed. A new email. Thanks for your application. At this time, we've decided to move forward with other candidates. Her breath hitched. She looked at her laptop screen, her new black hair reflected in the dark monitor. She had erased everything that made her who she was. And still? It wasn't enough. Anika clenched her fists. How much more did she have to erase to be worth hiring? She closed her laptop and stared at the ceiling. She had done everything right. Learned the latest skills. Adapted. Blended in. And yet, here she was, 54, unemployed, and invisible. Her twins' voices drifted in from the hallway. Maya and Ethan were arguing over textbooks, their college acceptance letters still pinned to the fridge. She had worked her entire life to make sure they had opportunities. But what about her? She wasn't just trying to survive. She was trying to prove to them, to the world, to herself, that she wasn't finished yet. A week later, her AI professor offered her an internship at a rising tech startup. It wasn't paid. It wasn't even guaranteed to lead to a job. But it was a foot in the door. She walked into the office on her first day, wearing sneakers instead of heels, a hoodie instead of a blazer. She had spent years leading teams, mentoring junior developers. Now? She was just an intern. She kept her head down, listened, learned. She forced herself to move faster, think quicker, code cleaner. And then came the hackathon. The teams were given a coding challenge, optimize an AI model under a strict deadline. She was paired with Dylan. The same kid who had smirked at her notes. He barely acknowledged her. Anika let him take the lead. Until he got stuck. Their model was lagging. Slowing down. Dylan and the other interns were throwing out random fixes, none of them working. Anika watched for a moment. Then she spoke. Your input pipeline is inefficient. You need to batch the data differently. Dylan frowned. That's not how we usually do it. Try it anyway, she said, keeping her voice even. He sighed and typed in her suggestion. The program ran. Faster. Smoother. Dylan blinked. Wait. That actually worked. Anika shrugged casually. Just an old trick. But inside, she felt something shift. For the first time, they were looking at her differently. Not as the older intern who didn't belong. But as a coder. She had just proven she could keep up. She had no idea how quickly that moment would come back to haunt her. The next morning, Anika was refilling her coffee when she overheard two interns whispering near the break room. Dude, did you see her fix that bug last night? Yeah, but how does she even know that stuff? I looked her up. Her stomach twisted. She's been coding longer than we've been alive. Literally. A short silence. Then, laughter. The kind that stung. So we have an actual boomer in our Gen Z startup. Anika's fingers tightened around her cup. They knew. And just like that, everything changed. It started subtly. Her manager, who had been friendly before, stopped giving her complex tasks. Dylan, who had asked for her input just yesterday, now avoided eye contact. In meetings, ideas she pitched were ignored, until a younger intern repeated them. It was happening again. They hadn't respected her skills yesterday. They had just assumed she was one of them. Now that they knew the truth? She was back to being an outsider. At the end of the week, her manager called her in. We love your enthusiasm, he said, forcing a smile. But we're moving in a different direction. Her stomach dropped. You're letting me go? We're just looking for interns who are a better culture fit. She knew what that meant. Not younger. Not faster. Just, not her. As she walked out of the building, head held high, she knew one thing for sure. She was done trying to fit into their world. It was time to build her own. Anika sat in her car outside the sleek glass building that had just thrown her away. She had spent months erasing herself, her years of experience, her identity, just to prove she was still worth hiring. And in the end, they still discarded her. Her fingers clenched the steering wheel. She had done everything right. She had learned the new skills, dressed the part, kept her mouth shut when they overlooked her ideas. And still, she was nothing more than an outsider to them. Her phone buzzed. A message from Raj. "Got time to talk?" She exhaled sharply and typed back. "Yeah. I need a plan." Raj met her at a small cafe, looking just as tired as she felt. He had been through it too. A senior software architect, once leading massive projects, now barely making ends meet with freelance gigs. She stirred her coffee absent-mindedly. "I tried to blend in," she said, voice hollow. "Did everything they wanted. Didn't matter." Raj smirked, shaking his head. "Of course, it didn't. You were playing their game." She glanced up. And the system is rigged against people like us." He slid his phone across the table. It was an article titled, "Tech Startups Are Failing, Here's Why." The subheading caught her attention. "Lack of experienced leadership is killing new companies faster than funding shortages." Anika skimmed the article. The data was clear: young, fast-moving startups were making fatal mistakes because they had no senior engineers to guide them. Raj leaned forward. "They don't want to hire us, but they need us. They just don't know it yet." Anika's fingers tapped against her coffee cup. He was right. The past few months, she had been trying to prove she could keep up. But what if she didn't have to? What if her experience wasn't the problem, but the solution? She looked at Raj and grinned. "Let's make them notice." Anika and Raj spent the next few weeks building a mentorship program. A platform where laid-off senior engineers could consult for struggling startups. They reached out to founders, wrote case studies, built a website. And nothing. Startups weren't interested. One founder responded with a single line, "We're looking for young, hungry talent." Another outright dismissed them. "We don't really need mentors. We need people who can do the work." Anika wanted to scream. "They think we're useless until they fail," she muttered to Raj after yet another rejection. He smirked. "Then we just need to find someone failing right now." It happened by accident. Anika was scrolling through LinkedIn when she saw a post from Dylan, the same intern who had dismissed her. His startup had launched a new AI model. It was supposed to be a breakthrough in predictive analytics. Instead, it was crashing under real-world data. The comments were brutal. Investors were getting nervous. Anika grinned. She forwarded the post to Raj. "Should we introduce ourselves?" 2 days later, Anika and Raj sat across from Dylan and his panicked co-founders in a sterile conference room. Dylan barely made eye contact. "So, he said, shifting uncomfortably. "You really think you can fix this?" Anika leaned forward, hands clasped, voice steady. "I don't think. I know." She laid out exactly where they had gone wrong: data bottlenecks, inefficient scaling, security vulnerabilities they hadn't even considered. Raj followed up with a 3-step plan to stabilize the system. By the end of the meeting, Dylan's team looked stunned. One of the co-founders cleared his throat. "And, what would something like this cost?" Anika didn't hesitate. She slid a contract across the table. "Here's our rate." Dylan picked up the paper, eyes scanning the numbers. He exhaled. "Okay. Let's do it." A month later, their mentorship program had clients. Not just Dylan's startup, others came too. Word spread fast. One afternoon, an unexpected email arrived. Subject: Consulting Inquiry, AI Integration Support. Anika clicked. And froze. The company logo at the top of the email? The same startup that had rejected her as an intern. Her lips curled into a slow smile. She forwarded it to Raj with a single line. "They're finally ready to listen." Anika sat in the same conference room where she had once been an unpaid intern. Now? She was on the other side of the table. The CEO who had dismissed her cleared his throat. "We'd love to work with you." Anika leaned back, folding her arms. For the first time in years, she felt completely in control. She let the silence stretch. Then, finally, she spoke. "We'll think about it." She wasn't desperate anymore. She was the one making the decisions now. And it felt damn good.